Hey guys, I'm Tony, and today I'm going to show you how to install luxury vinyl plank flooring. Now this product is durable, budget-friendly, and has a texture that mimics the look of real hardwood. The best part is, this is going to be one of the easier flooring installations you can do. Now with a little know-how, I'm going to show you how to do it yourself and do it right. Now this vinyl plank flooring can be installed in any level and in any room of your home. We're going to be installing these waterproof Smartcore Ultra vinyl planks in a basement. Now similar to laminate, this uses a tongue and groove system that simply locks together. And with that, I'm going to get this furniture out of here so we can get started. Before you start, you're going to want to read your instructions for any specifics. Typically, real wood products are going to need a few days to acclimate to the room they're going into. This vinyl product, however, is ready to install right out of the box. Next, I'm going to measure the room to calculate the square footage so I know how much material to get. On top of that, I'm going to add 10% for any waste or mistakes made along the way. With vinyl floor planks, you're going to want a dry, solid, level, and clean subfloor. If you have carpet like we do, it's got to go. I like to take a pair of pliers, grab it by the edge, and simply pull it back. Now once you get enough of it back, it's a good idea to take a knife, cut it into strips so it's easier to carry out of the basement. Consider wearing a dust mask while you're doing this. Then roll up the padding. Next, remove the tack strips. I like to use a hammer and pry bar. You can try different tools and figure out what works best for you. If there's any glue left over from the carpet, it can be removed with a flooring adhesive remover and a scraper. If you have existing tile or vinyl, it can remain as long as it's in good shape and secure. If it has deep joints or a heavy texture, it'll have to be removed or filled in with a leveler. Now it's best to do a moisture test on your subfloor. For a wood subfloor, you can use a moisture meter like this. For a concrete subfloor, call a pro. We had ours tested a few days ago. Next, we're going to check our floor for level. Now most importantly, we just want to make sure that the floor is even. We don't want any bumps or peaks. Now back here we found some old mortar spots, but these can easily be removed with the scraper. If you have any actual high spots in the concrete, use a grinder to knock them down. For any low spots, you can use a self-leveler. We're going to start by using a floor primer on the area. Then mix up the leveler and spread it with a trowel. Also, fill any cracks. Check the package for the cure times. Now on to doors and moldings. This product has to have enough room to move underneath them freely. In our case, our door has more than enough clearance. If yours doesn't, you're going to have to take it off the hinges and cut it down with a circular saw. However, our door casing is too long, so I'm going to take a piece of the underlayment and the flooring to use them as a guide, and then use this oscillating tool to make our cut. Now this manufacturer requires a 1/4 inch gap between the wall and the flooring. Now we're not going to be removing our baseboards, so once the entire floor is complete, we'll cover that gap up using a shoe mold. Another option is to remove the baseboards and extend the flooring closer to the wall. Just keep in mind, if the baseboards go on in a lower position, you might have to repair the walls. Then make sure the floor is clean. Be sure to get along the baseboards. Now our subfloor is prepped. You're not necessarily going to have to go through all those steps, but if you do, now you know how to do it right. Now most flooring products that are installed over concrete below grade are going to require a vapor barrier. A 6mm poly works just fine. We're going to use this Smartcore underlayment. This underlayment acts as a moisture barrier, a thermal barrier, has noise reduction, and is made to work with our flooring product. Just check the directions for installation details. This stuff is super easy to install. Start by sliding it into a corner. I like to take another box and set it on top to hold it in place for now. And then it simply unfolds across the room. With our next row in place, it's time to make a cut. We're going to take our excess from this row, fold it up the wall, and make a mark where we're going to do our cut. The nice thing about this stuff is it has a grid printed on it, which makes our cuts a lot easier to do. We're going to take our straight edge, put it on the line, and then bring it all the way down. Then we're going to take our utility knife and make our cut. Next, we're going to tape our seams using this underlayment tape. I used a couple packages of the product on top of the underlayment to keep it in place. Then we're going to undo our tape and smooth it out as we go. Then continue installing the underlayment to cover the subfloor. Stagger seams if you have any. So typically, the best way to lay your floor is to have the long side of the plank run parallel with the longest wall in your room. And for our product, we need to make sure that the joints are spaced at least 8 inches apart. Also, to make sure that the flooring is square in your room, it's a good idea to mark a starting line along the wall. First, mark the center of each wall and snap chalk lines to form a cross. Then measure from the center of the starting wall, subtract the expansion gap and the width of a plank, and mark this distance at the ends. Use the marks to snap a starting line along the wall. I'm going to be starting our installation on this long wall. 1, because it's an exterior wall and more likely to be straight, and 2, because it allows me to install the flooring in the direction that the installation instructions recommend. Figure out the width of the last row you'll need to install so you don't end up with skinny planks. To do that, take the length of the room and divide it by the width of the plank. For instance, if your room is 192 inches long, divide that by 7 inches to get 27.43 planks. That's 27 full planks. Multiply the excess times the width of the plank for the size of the last row. 0.43 times 7 equals 3.01, so about 3 inches. If you get a tiny sliver, cut a little off the first row. Now before we start laying our planks, we're going to need to install some spacers around the perimeter of our room so we can maintain our 1/4 inch expansion gap. I like to use pieces of tape to keep them in place so they don't move. Our installation is going to be a floating floor, which means it's not attached to the subfloor. This is the recommended installation for a basement. You can also do a glue down application on other floors of your home, which is going to be the recommended application if you have heavy furniture like a pool table. Now for our first piece, I ripped the tongue off the long side and the short side. These are the sides that go against the wall. I made this cut using a table saw, but you can also use other types of saws to cut this material. Now we've removed the tongue end from the long sides of all the planks in our first row. We're going to take our second plank, put the tongue into the groove, lay it down, and lock it into place. Continue installing the first row and cut the last piece to length if needed. Remember to account for the expansion gap. Now for the first piece in our second row, we need to make sure that it's at least 8 inches long. We're going to take the tongue, place it in the groove, and lock it down. And also remembering to stagger our seams at least 8 inches. Now for our next piece, we're going to angle our long end tongue into the groove, lock it down, keeping the short end seam as close as possible. Now I've taken a couple scrap pieces and cut 2 of the sides flat. These are going to lock into our piece we're installing, so in case we mishit our tapping block, it won't damage our new piece of flooring. We'll move that down, locking in as we go. Then we're going to take it, putting it over the seam between the 2 pieces, and then I'll take another scrap piece, lock it in the end, take our tapping block, and tap the short ends into place. Here's a tip. Use a weight or box of planks to hold the rows in place as you install. Repeat the fold and lock process until the installation is complete. Mix planks from different boxes to mix up the color and texture. Consider setting the mixed stacks of flooring around the room so it's ready to install as you're working. Remember to stagger the joints at least 8 inches and keep the expansion gap. And make sure all the joints are tight as you're installing. Now we've come to this post in the middle of our room, so we're going to have to notch our flooring to fit around it. We're still going to use our spacer so we can maintain our 1/4 inch gap, which we're also going to cover with molding once the flooring is complete. And we're going to take our tape measure, measuring off our first piece, get our measurements, and we're going to put them on our board. Then we'll take the measurement for the depth of our cut. Then we'll draw our lines using this speed square. And now we're ready to make our cut. Try not to tap where the notch is cut. Now to find the width of our last row, I'm going to take a piece and slide it into place, and then take a measure at each end off the wall, allowing for that 1/4 inch expansion gap. Now I take the width off each end in case the wall's out of square. Then I'll transfer the marks to our board, and I can make our cut. Now we can install it using the pull bar. Then we'll repeat the process by using the pull bar along the long end. Continue installing the last row. When you get to doorway openings, you'll have to slide your flooring underneath the casing. Now these pieces can be a little tricky, but if you work it, you'll get it. We'll start by pulling the long side in first with our pull bar. Then we'll tap our end piece in with our tapping block. For our next piece, we'll slide it under the other casing, just like the first. To start finishing our project, we'll remove the spacers. Then we'll install our shoe molding. Remember to nail into the baseboard, not the flooring. To finish off our flooring project, we're going to install our transition strips. If you have any extra underlayment like we do, you're going to cut it off using a knife. Then we'll take some silicone sealant and run a small bead along the edge to create a watertight seal. Then we'll take some sandpaper and scuff up our transition strip. Then we'll add a small amount of construction adhesive, not too much. This stuff can squirt out to the back of our transition strip. We'll set it in place, press down, and then we're going to use some weights to hold it in place until the adhesive sets up. Other types of transitions install by setting a track, then snapping the transition into place. So this installation took us a couple of days to complete, but once you get the hang of it, things move along pretty quickly, and now you know how to do it right.